What's up everyone, Nima here, and I want to do a final thoughts video on Monster Hunter Stories 2, and kind of my experience with it, and maybe a little bit of a warning, if you will, for people who uh, have the same affliction that I apparently suffered with this game. So what happened? Um, I played so much of the game as far as side quests and exploring, and I basically wore myself out of the game. I don't think it's a bad game, and I don't know if you remember my first thoughts on it. I really, really liked it quite a bit, but as time went on, Scarlet Nexus came out, and Neo: The World Ends with You, and of course the classic um, Zelda and all of that. It just This game got pushed further and further to the back burner as far as like games that I just wanted to play, and it got as far back as I was playing a lot of my back catalog and games that I wouldn't have rated as high as this game, but I just didn't want to play it. Like the want was not there, and I think part of it is I really I got burnt out. I played so much of it and did so little. And part of that is the game itself. Um, the idea of the Monstie collecting is really cool until you kind of come to the realization that you're kind of gifted the best Monstie in the game, as far as I'm aware, and as far as I've been playing. And all the other ones they don't match up. And so it really does become, why am I collecting these? It doesn't seem to really do much. They don't impact the game as much as I thought it would. This isn't like the Pokemon paradigm of get, a special Pokemon, get it evolved, make it stronger, and, just completely wreck the game with your strong Pokemon. No, it's more like they're almost the same in a lot of ways, and almost to the point where you kind of realize, well, I should probably just stick with a couple and level them up. And that mechanic itself kind of ruins part of the reason why you're out there collecting monsties. They're all different in aesthetics, and some of them have different abilities, but as far as actual combat, I'm going to say my experience was that not much changed. If you compare that to the story, which was lackluster, it is one of those stories that after a while, it was so, I don't want to use the word boring, but such background that you kind of stopped caring and ultimately realized that the story itself didn't change too much. And there wasn't much more to learn. Now, there's some, characters that they expand upon, some people that you meet and you find out their backstories, and it's interesting and it's kind of cool, but just not enough, because these characters, I don't think, play themselves into the prominent roles that we have with a lot of RPGs and other side characters. There's none that are just particularly memorable. I still think a game is a great game, and I honestly think that had I not got into the grinding mentality of it, I would have probably liked it quite a bit more. If I just played through the game, you know, from A to B, go here, do that, follow everything. Don't do as much exploration, and just kind of follow the game for what it tells you to do, instead of to try to, expand and explore and get a bunch of monsties and do a whole bunch of other things. I think that actually took me down the wrong path. And I'm used to a lot of the RPG mechanics of grinding out levels so that you can proceed easier at the latter part of the game. You kind of you juiced yourself up, so to speak, and now nothing can stop you. Because so often I've gotten to, I think Grandia 2 is a good example of a game that I was enthralled with the story, and so I just kept going through. I didn't do side quests, I didn't do much exploration, and very, very late in the game, I got to a point where I just couldn't beat it. I had to take like maybe 10 hours off to go grind for levels. And so I try to avoid that with a lot of games by grinding prematurely. And I think that was probably too much, because I think I just kind of I really wore myself out of the game and kind of stopped caring as much. And that's my experience, and that's my kind of warning to other people who might play this game or other RPGs, especially the newer ones. Yeah, you don't have to grind as much. And to be honest, I don't know. There's so many other, uh, say the word limitations in this game. I think limitations is a good one, because something like the monster collecting, for instance, like in a Pokemon kind of game, you can collect as many as you want. Doesn't matter. In this game, you are hamstrung to how big your party can be, and I believe the number is like 8 to maybe 12, and that's all you can get. And each one has a different fighting ability, so you want to keep at least 3 different ones, and that's almost non-negotiable. You have to have those 3 separate fighting styles at least. And so then that takes you down to like around 9 that you're able to choose from, and you're constantly kind of going back and forth on which ones you want to kick out of your party. And when you release them or kick them out, they're gone for good. And that for me was an issue, because part of the process of kind of breeding them and changing out their powers, so to speak, exchanging their powers, is you don't really know what you want from a certain monster until you've played a little bit more with them. And that is definitely kind of an issue that I ran into, where I couldn't fully analyze what I wanted to do with that monster, and by the time I got just to the next level, I had already collected too many, and I had to get rid of them to hatch a new egg, to expand my party, and it became an issue, because that was one of the big mechanics of this game, was collecting monsties. And then you say, well, you can only collect so many at a time, and if you wanted to kind of develop 1 or 2 monsters that had a lot more abilities and kind of make them a super monster, well, sorry, you're not going to be able to do that. Time will not allow you to do that, and in space, and then, I don't know, it really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because this game, for the most part, wasn't heavy on story. It was more about the combat, and it was more about the ability to almost have like an older version of Pokemon. And then you kind of take away a lot of that, or you limit that to the point that it is, in my opinion, a little handicapped compared to other games. And I don't know. I'm gonna say that this is a game that I still think it's worth it, especially if it's on sale. I will go like revisit this game in a year or so, after I've kind of, I don't know, maybe just cleansed my palate of the game, and give it another fair shot. I think part of it is I was very excited to get this game, and that's probably why my first impressions were so high of it, was because it was really the first RPG that had come out in about 8 months. And so a new RPG, I'm down. I'm excited. But it was the first of many that came out within like this period of a month. I mean, you think about it, Neo The World Ends With You, Scarlet Nexus, Chris Tales, there's like 2 others I'm forgetting. It all came out, and we have even more coming out here in the next month or so. And so at first it was just like getting back into this style of game that I love, and then kind of realizing that it's kind of a mediocre RPG, to be honest. At least in my experience, it's definitely overshadowed by like Neo The World Ends With You. And that's my experience. I know there's going to be people who disagree and say Monster Hunter Stories 2 is better. And if that's the way you feel, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, but it's not my experience. I would say if you could choose between Neo The World Ends With You or Monster Hunter Stories 2, I would go with Neo. It's just kept me more engaged than this game has. I find so many more reasons to play that game and to keep playing it, aside from just the battle itself and the amount that that game changes compared to this game, where it really does go stale. That same rock, paper, scissors mechanic doesn't really change. And at first it seems like a pretty cool idea, but over time you get really bored of it. And I think they make it worse because you're not given a lot of like other powers aside from like the moves and the skills that you have when you start. They don't expand that much. Equipment changes don't really change that much. And I really think that that's one of the biggest issues with the game. Again, like Neo The World Ends With You, or even Scarlet Nexus, or going into any other game, different equipment can either give you different skills in certain games, or it can hit different, or even an elemental difference. Yes, there is an elemental difference in this game and what your equipment is, but it's not that important. It really isn't. It doesn't make that big of an impact. So, I don't know. I don't like to give numbers. I think that's foolish. The scale of 1 to 10, or, how many, I don't know, what have you want to give the game. I just would say that for me, it's a good to okay game. Again, I would advise somebody who's into RPGs to check it out. I think it's definitely worth inspection, but I wouldn't tell you to buy it full price. I don't think that it's worth that right now, and I think this is definitely one of those games that you would be able to get on a discount, and I would definitely wait for that. But that's my thoughts on it. Kind of curious if you checked it out and what your thoughts on the game are. Anyway, guys, take care of yourself and your loved ones. Bye-bye.